Hi, I'm Joanne Dennison, CMP, and I'm making this video today. Hopefully, it feels like I'm sitting next to you or something to hopefully help you with some information and answering some questions that you may have about going through the CMP process. Um, Sometimes it's really hard to find the questions in a way that you can put them together in order on the website. All the information is on the events industry website, but it can sometimes just be tough to find exactly what you're looking for. I do want to point out I do not work for the EIC, for the Events Industry Council. I have been teaching classes for CMP preparation for 25 years, and I work really hard to stay on top of whatever the latest information is, so I can hopefully help answer questions and steer people down the right paths. Um, One of the first things I want to let you know is if you're wondering, could you even apply for one? Because maybe you don't plan meetings, or you're thinking it's only for corporate meetings, or it's only for association meetings, or something like that. Anyone who is in the meetings and events field can potentially apply and sit for the CMP exam. So if you're doing social events or special events or sporting events or festivals, any kind of event could qualify you to sit for the CMP. So don't rule yourself out just because you're not doing corporate meetings in a ballroom with a lot of production. Okay? So what do you need to apply to sit for the CMP? There's three different paths people could take. The most common one is that you have worked for pay in the industry 36 out of the past 60 months. Okay, it doesn't have to be 3 years continuously. That's why they say 36 months out of the past 60 months, which would be 5 years. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is you will be required to have minimally 25 continuing education hours that pertain to the exam to be able to sit. We'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. The second option that some people do is if they have a degree in hospitality or a related field, associates or above, they can use that and then sit for the exam after only 24 months of experience. They too will need the continuing education hours. And the third is if they are a full-time professor or instructor at an accredited college or university, they have a different path that they can take. So those are the three options. The first being the most common, second being the second most common, and the third, of course, obviously a very specific group of people it pertains to. First thing I'm going to recommend you do is that you go to the events industry website, eventsindustry.org, which is the EIC website, and open yourself an account if you have not. It is free. If you think you might sit for the exam anytime in the next 5 years or maybe ever, go ahead and start this account. It's a place to keep all your stuff together for the application. You can upload everything you need. This is where you can keep track of those continuing education hours, and it's much better than doing them on a spreadsheet or Post-its and then having to upload them when you're actually ready, and it will help you see where you stand in terms of applying also. So that's the first thing I'm going to recommend you to do. I would also suggest you use a personal email for that and not a work email. In case you change jobs, it can get very complicated. So when do you apply? How soon do you need to apply? A lot of people have this question. What a lot of people do is they get their application all together, they send it in, they get accepted, and then they'll come to me or someone else and say, okay, I'm ready to take a test now. I've been accepted. I can understand the logic in that, but in my opinion, that is not the best way to do it. And the reason being is from the day you are accepted, you have 365 days to pass the exam. And I know a year sounds like a lot of time, but sometimes your personal or professional or both lives take some different directions in that time period, and you don't get to work on it as much, or maybe you don't pass the exam the first time. Lots of different things can happen, or maybe you never even get to do anything on it, and suddenly the year is over. Well, if you haven't passed it at the end of the 365 days, you will have to apply all over again, and you will have to pay the fee all over again, which is $350, which is non-refundable. So what I suggest people do is keep working on their application, but in the meantime, start preparing for the exam. we'll talk in a minute about like how you can prepare and what options for classes and everything, but start preparing. Go take a class, work with people, get in a study group, buy the materials. It will give you a much better idea of how long it's going to take you personally to to be ready to sit for the exam. And people go, well, how long does it? You know what? No one can answer that question because everyone is different in the way they study, how they choose to get support for studying, what their personal and professional lives are. There is no, oh, you can do it in a month. Oh, it's going to take you a year. It's really you and your life. So I would recommend getting into the study and preparation process before you even apply, so you have a better idea. One of the other things you're going to need that you will be able to put up again in your account is a resume. And one of the things I like to point out to people is this is not a what I call get a job resume. This is not where you have to eloquently tell them how multitask, juggle balls, independent. Yeah, that's not that type of resume. Basically, it is a chronological resume showing your experience. And one thing I will suggest when you do that is if you have a job title that is not obvious that it has meetings or events under it, make sure you write a description that talks about it. Because sometimes people have manager two or executive assistant or administrative assistant or marketing director or whatever, but they're doing events. They're doing lots of events potentially. And so make sure that if your job does not have meetings or events in the title, that you write about it and explain what you are doing in meetings and events. I'd say that's one of the biggest things people get hung up on. But just know you don't have to go into, what nonprofits you volunteered for and what you did in college. This is just literally a chronological resume. So hopefully that'll save you some time and worry. So let's move on to the next part. Let's talk about how do I prepare. So there's various study options. Obviously, you can study by yourself, but I will tell you, I would safely say it is almost impossible to prepare for this exam totally on your own. I mean, you may find resources to work with like videos and things like that, but just doing it on your own with books and notes is going to be very, very tough way to do it. So there are other options. You can join a study group, which frequently some of the professional association chapters put those together. They know a couple of people in the chapter who are all studying for the CMP exam, and they'll put them together and say, go at it. No facilitator, no teacher, just you all sharing information that you've read and talking about it. Then there's other study groups that do have facilitators, people usually who have passed the CMP exam, and they help go through the conversation and, talk about material some and things like that. Then also there's classes. Now, sometimes classes are taught by volunteers, let's say from the chapters. It's very common. And they are teaching, the teachers may change every time they offer a class, but they are teaching a segment of the class. And then there's also classes that are being run by companies, such as myself. I've done mine through my business since I started, and there are others. And that is where someone is actually teaching. The one thing I would say is before you decide which of the paths you want to take is think about the best learning environments you've ever been in, whether it be now as an adult going to a conference or doing online classes or on-demand classes, or even back when you were in high school, or if you continued your schooling after high school. What was best? Did you like being able to interact with a instructor? Or were you kind of a, yep, got my notes, I'm good, moving on type thing? Know what works for you before you pick how you want to prepare. I would say that's one of the most important things, because people sometimes choose one and then realize it doesn't fit their learning styles at all. With the classes, you will find on-demand classes. You will find there's probably some still in real life, like a person in the room with you. And then there's others that teach it's a virtual class, but you are interacting with the instructor, real time. And some people like that because they want to be able to answer questions right away. And then in others, there's, they do part of it on demand, and then they have certain sessions where they're able to interact with the instructor. A lot of people think, because this is kind of what's been said for many years, that this exam is all about memorization. And there are still people who say that. And that's fine. They are welcome to that opinion. I do not agree with that. When the exam first started, it was really memorization, but it has moved away from that in the past 20-25 years. It's much more conceptual and understanding how it works and how it applies to the job you're doing now or the job you may do in the future, or just examples through the material you're reading. So do not think, a lot of people say to me, oh, I can't do this, I was always terrible at memorizing. Good, this may be the exam for you then, because if you approach it from a different point of view than memorization, you probably will do better on the exam, to be perfectly honest. One of the things you've probably heard is that there will be a new book coming out. And EIC has been working on getting new materials and a new exam out for a few years. They, like everyone else, got snagged in the pandemic and everything changed. And then they waited to see what impact the pandemic would have on our industry. So it is now all pulling together, and their official statement right now is that the new book, the new EIC manual, and the new glossary will be out the very end of 2025 or the beginning of 2026. Remember, I said this is being filmed in September of 2025. So that's the scoop on the new book. So in the meantime, the current manual, the EIC 9th edition manual, and the 2019 glossary are the two key learning resources. Okay, so that's what you're going to need. In addition to that, there are also some new materials that have come out. Okay, so we have the EIC Manual 9th edition, and that is in print and digital, and the glossary, 2019 glossary, which is also in print and digital. I will say, again, totally up to you, but feedback from people who have bought digital versions since they started coming out have discovered they really didn't work very well for them in terms of teaching, because they're not like traditional ebooks. They're more like one large document. Just something to think about. Maybe talk to someone who's used them before you choose to buy. Then also, and yes, I am reading off a list, so I get it right, EIC Event Risk Management Guidebook, which is free on the EIC website. The EIC Digital and Hybrid Events Guidebook, which is also free on the EIC website. And the Sustainable Event Professional Workbook, which only comes in a digital form, and that is available for purchase on the EIC website. So those are the materials. Sometimes people say, going back to the glossary and the EIC manual, the current ones, well, I have friends who had them and they're going to let me borrow them, or they're going to give them to me. What do you think of that? Not a fan. The reason being is because everyone processes the material differently. And if you get a book that has someone else's thought process and notes and scribbles in it, it may throw you. Personally, I think it's a good place to invest money, is buy a new book. I don't make anything on this, so don't worry. Not trying to pitch a sale here. Just people reading around other people's notes can be confusing, and especially if they studied in a different fashion than you choose to. For example, when people come to my class and they have books that they got from a friend, and the friend studied a different way, frequently the notes don't make any sense in the margins and the markups because the person who taught that class taught it differently than I did. Just something to think about. And that is the scoop on the materials and the books. So the last thing is the exam fee. So once you are accepted and you know when you want to take the exam, you can go on, and you may know that the exam is offered both virtually and in person in testing centers. So you can take it from your home or your workplace or whatever. Another thing to think very heavily on what will be best for you. And in fact, I actually have some videos online that talk about things to think about, whether you should take it virtually or if you should take it in the testing center. Different things for different people. There is no one right answer. But you will go on, you will find the date, you will find the way that you want to take it, you will schedule it, and you will pay a non-refundable exam fee of $525 US dollars. You can move the date, but you will pay a fee if you have to reschedule. So it's always best, like I said, even for the application, get into the process, understand what you're going to have to do to both apply, and then when you're into the process and you're coming up with a good idea of when you want to take the exam, that's when you're going to schedule it. Because again, sometimes our personal and professional lives have different plans than we had. A little bit on how the exam's constructed. There are 165 multiple choice questions on the exam. 150 of them are scored. In other words, they count toward your score. 15 of them are beta questions, where they're trying new questions to see how they're working. You will not know what is what. You have 3.5 hours to take the exam. If you have a learning disability or if English is not your first language, you can apply for another 30 minutes. The passing score is 55. Now, I'm saying this because everyone asks this, but I could do a whole video on that 55 means nothing to you and me. It's not 55%, it's not 55 questions, it's far more complicated than that. So to a certain extent, that doesn't help you at all, to be perfectly honest, but everyone asks, so I always give the information. When do you get the result? How soon do you find out if you passed or did not pass? You find out before you even leave the building. When you answer all the questions and you say you've answered all the questions and you submit, it will give you a little survey to do, which annoys the heck out of anyone, but there's reasons for doing it. Just telling you this, you won't remember it by the time you get to the exam, but I'm telling you now. And then right afterwards, it will pop up saying you passed or you did not pass. And then you will get an email from Prometric, which is the company that administers the exam, telling you more information. So you know before you even stand up from your chair. So that's how you get the result. So I'm hoping this helped a little bit in terms of what you need to know to get going. Don't be scared of the fact that this is a new exam. I had someone contact me back beginning of the year who was trying to get it done by March 31st because she says, I want to take it before it gets harder. And I said, why do you think it's going to get harder? Just because they're changing the exam. The exam, it goes back to this whole scoring thing and everything. The exam doesn't get harder, it just evolves as the world evolves and our industry evolves. So that's why they try to update it every 5 years to make it as current and accurate as possible. So don't feel that you've missed the boat because you missed the other exam. It's still an accurate and fair representation of where we are now. I'm hoping this helps, and please let me know if you have any questions. And my email is on the screen if you want to email me, and I hope that helps. And good luck. I wish everyone good luck who goes down this journey, and don't give up. Sometimes it doesn't work out as fast as you think it's going to, but it's okay.